Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Kirk Torrance with the next installment of Smart Talk at the Auckland Museum. And tonight I'd like to introduce some very special and weighty guests. Haare Williams, Director of Maori Partnerships at Auckland Museum. The composer and researcher, Te Ahukaramu Charles Royal. And historian, storyteller, orator, and naughty fella all around, Pita Turei, as well as outstanding musician, Whirimako Black. Please welcome our guests for tonight. Now, when Pita asked me to sit in this chair, we met at a cafe, and the first thing I said is, shucks, bro, I don't know, man. It's such a huge thing, Matariki. I'm not really a proper Maori. And he started talking about it, and it came to a point in this discussion, and so my first question is to Pita, because what we talked about, or what he talked about a lot, was sex and Matariki. So if he could perhaps answer the thing, what is the connection between sex and Matariki, my good friend?
Now this question is a very important one. Sex and Matariki, what's it got to do with it? What's a New Year's Eve party got to do with sex? How would I know? And it's not just sex. If it is sex, it's because sex is to do with procreation. It's because sex is to do with continuum. We find references that unlock these secrets for us when we visit the land, when we talk the stories of the land. In the first sitting of the land court in Tāmaki, Wātarui, he said, He ika I tēnei whenua, I hutia mai a Maui. This land was a fish hooked up by Maui. But when we dismantle how we use our language, how we express things, imagine there's two guys on a beach. Where are you going, bro? I'm going fishing. Or where are you going? Or just out to the horizon. Or what did you catch? Oh, hooked up land, bro. Land. My fish is land, bro. From the horizon. Oh, what was your hook then? The lower jaw of my grandmother. Now, of course, that got mythologized, and he pulled the jaw out, made a fish hook out of it, and pulled it. The lower jaw is the only jaw that moves. And because the lower jaw moves, it means we can continue our traditions orally. Why the grandmother? What is it that women know that men don't know? One thing I've noticed observing Matariki is there is a cycle of the moon. 2 years ago from Whakaari out at Piha, Lion Rock, we watched Matariki rise. Satisfied, be prepared to put the fire out and go for breakfast somewhere. Suddenly it looked as though the bushes were on fire, and it was a full moon rising directly behind Matariki. We sat down and waited again. Not long after that, the sun did the same thing. I've subsequently learned that only happens once every 18 years with the cycle of the moon. This knowledge is the knowledge of the grandmothers. For us to understand these things, it is not just the experience and knowledge and courage of men. It is the knowledge that is gained from understanding the cycles of life governed by the moon as well as the sun. So, I haven't really talked about sex, and it's possibly just as well. That is something all of you will discover. But I leave it to my fellow panelists who might have more to offer on that subject. Kia ora no tātou katoa.
The comment that I wanted to share this evening about the significance of the annual Matariki celebration is this. We all live in a modern culture which is driven and saturated by artificial time, meaning we are all driven by the clock. We're all driven by the artificial measurements of time, like minutes, seconds, hours, Even the calendar that we work to is largely an artificial construction. January the 1st to the 31st, or February the 1st to the 28th, or whatever. This is largely a construction of human beings to project some kind of order into the world and to kind of make ourselves feel at home or at peace with the way the world is. Now, this kind of thing is intensified by our recent, the culture that we're in at the moment, the culture of emails and texts and internet, and even more so, milestones, outputs, outcomes, and the drive to be accountable to contracts and, and not to embarrass ourselves around funding mechanisms and all sorts of things. We're driven by an artificial structure of time. All of us are. We're absolutely dominated, absolutely saturated by this thing called I'm calling it artificial time. There are other more technical terms, I'm sure. What Matariki does is it reminds us of the natural time and the natural rhythms of the universe that exist whether human beings or not exist, we exist or not. The natural rhythms of the universe, the appearance of the sun in the morning and the ascension of the sun in the sky and the sun going to bed at night. The natural rhythms of the universe, the 9 months of the pregnancy, for example, the natural rhythms of the universe are the natural rise and fall of energy in one's body each day, the arrival of thought and understanding in the mind, the way in which energy flows naturally, the tides, the water on the beaches, and the way the wind flows and so on. This is all natural. The universe provides this natural cycles and rhythms of time. And I think the deep significance of Matariki is, just for a moment at least, it reminds us that there are other cycles of time in the universe, and they're not driven by the artificial clock which we humans have created and rendered tremendously important to ourselves.
In the last 10 years, I've known to be celebrating Matariki every year at this time. And it's, I would call sometimes a wonderful excuse for Maori to be innovative, creative, and also reflect back on who we are as Maori, and perhaps who we are as all people who have grown their life here in Aotearoa. Are we a new hybrid of New Zealanders? These are the questions that I've often spoken about with others. For me, Matariki is that great excuse to be and celebrate, to be Māori. And it is also a time for me to remember how I got here, how my ancestors arrived here. It is a time for me to reflect and be grateful and have gratitude in my work about how I can identify myself through being Māori, through being a Māori woman, and where my place is in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I tonight have selected songs to perform tonight to share our beautiful Māori language with you all, and share songs of past, present, and future, of contemporary, of traditional. So Matariki for me is about blending that all in. I am no way can bring up and conjure up kōrero for you other than what I've experienced and felt. I hope to be able to have shared a little bit of light with you what is Matariki. I'm also very honoured to be here and asked to speak this, because my speaking comes through music. So this is amazing to be sitting by these very learned gentlemen and to be speaking. So here's one for the musicians. Kia ora. Thank you.
I guess I'm the one that's lived the longest on this platform. As an 8-year-old, as a 5-year-old, as a 3-year-old, I went out with my grandparents. We lived in a raupo house at Ohiwa. Beautiful place. I miss the blue and the beauty of Ohiwa right now. And I used to think they were witches because they used to go out and do a mihi to the moon and to Rigel, that's Puanga, and eventually the appearance that those two, the heralded the beginning, the rising of Matariki. And we'd go out in the chill of dawn, shivering cold. I was too scared to stay in our whareraupo because ghosts were always around. You daren't stay on your own in the dark. So we were socialized as young children to respect the presence of a kehua, a ghost. I never saw a ghost, I've never seen a ghost. But it instilled in us that the protection of anything of value was inherent in how you perceived the natural as well as the spiritual or metaphysical environment. My grandmother was Whiuwhiu Taihakwa of Waikirikiri in Rātoki. Whiuwhiu's father was Tutakangaho. Tutakangaho handed a lot of information in the Urewera and Waikaremoana, where my ancestors originate from, to Elsden Best and James Cowan. And much of that information is about knowledge of the stars. We haven't lost it, it's there. It's there in Waiata. Listen to this, for example. Po e tangi ana tama ki te kai mana waihome tiki ake ki te hau a kai me a mai te pakake ki utara hei waiu mō tama ki aho mai e tō tipuna e uenuku whakarongo. And it goes on for 20 minutes. But in that 20 minutes, it describes the passage of the stars, the cosmology of earth and sky, and our whakapapa. Our genealogical link with heaven, with sky and Papa Tuanuku, the earth, the generosity of a giving earth, and the sky, the spiritual elements that sprinkles down with rain that comes down to the earth. But the stars are the ones that gives beauty to our cosmology, but also to the cloak of rangi that was put across his wife, Papa Tuanuku, the earth. So these deities, Papa Tuanuku, Ureia, the Marakihau, the Kehua, the ghost, Taniwha, that looked after and protected the quality of water. Patupaerehe, hands up those of you who know what a patupaerehe is. Not many. Wow, I'm surprised there's so many. The Patupaerehe keeps the balance of nature in the bush. Ngāti Whātua believe there's still Patupaerehe dwells in the Waitakere Ranges. What I'm getting at really, these are deities that belong to New Zealand. Matariki is an intrinsic part of our heritage, our culture. Just as Santa Claus it's become at Christmas time, Santa Claus and Christmas become a commercial orgy for New Zealanders, trying to buy presents for children. Matariki is not a commercial orgy. It belongs to all of us here in New Zealand. It's not just the Māori celebration, it's for all New Zealanders to share the beginning, the mātahi o te tau, the beginning, to start again, to make a new beginning. I suppose New Year is like that when you make pledges at New Year to make a difference. But Matariki is not quite, is a wee bit apart from that. What I'm saying is Matariki, Taniwha, and Patupaerehe belong to New Zealand. Their rightful places here. Why do we continue to celebrate Queen's birthday? Why do we keep on celebrating functions that belong to another hemisphere that's out of place here? I get the feeling that people are getting slightly divorced from Easter, but Easter is the equivalent of Matariki. The winter in the Northern Hemisphere is our equivalent here, is Matariki. Matariki is not a fixed date. It occurs when the new moon, which is about to rise, takes dominance over the north northeastern sky. So right now, Matariki is appearing about that direction, northeast. And it's pretty low in the sky now. The best time to watch, to perceive Matariki is September. Some years ago, when my daughter was 8, I always have to mention my daughter. I woke her up when she was asleep. I said, come out and watch Matariki. She moaned and groaned. I wrapped her in her sleeping bag. We went out and saw it. And she still groaned and moaned about having to go out there, you stupid dad, going out to watch the stars. That's what I said about my grandparents. But today, she's 20 now. She's up at the university. And she's, Dad, that's the most enriching experience I've ever had in my life. Viewing Matariki, a part of her and a part of me and a part of New Zealand's future. It is our future. It is our heritage. It belongs to us. It's an intrinsic part of our virtues, of our stories, all the things that we combine with Māori culture and the best of traditions from England, initially in the Treaty of Waitangi, and from other parts of the world. Nō reira, haere mai, haere mai, haere mai. Welcome to Matariki.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to open the floor for any questions you may have about Matariki. So don't be scared. No one's going to bite your hand off.
Thank you. I'd like to know why it's taken such a long time to rediscover Matariki. Maybe the Suppression of Taonga Act might give us an idea of why it's taken a long time to get it back into Maori consciousness and New Zealand's consciousness. I'd like if you could perhaps provide some ideas about why that might be.
Yeah. Cool. I think it's Charles, it's your turn now. Step up to the plate.
Kia ora, thank you for your question. I don't have any final answer to that question, but I suspect it's quite a complex. The answer is complex. Certainly, it's got something to do with the dip in knowledge by Māori about our own knowledge and in the rise again through time. It's certainly got something to do with that. It's certainly got something to do with the renewal and confidence amongst Māori about our own culture and our own language and our own knowledge and so on. It's certainly, that's a part of it. I think also in wider society, general society, there is an opening of the doors regarding the kinds of things that might influence the currents of society. I do think that there is a new wind blowing with respect to the relationship between Māori and Pākehā. I think things are quite different now than they were even 10 years ago and 20 years ago. Yes, we certainly have our ructions and we certainly go through ups and downs. But one of the really interesting things, and this is why it's tremendously important to continue, for New Zealand to continue to enable Māori to become confident in Māori culture, is that as more Māori become more confident in their culture, tension decreases in Māori spirits in relationship to Pākehā. And there is an openness and a willingness to share with others. When Māori become enclosed, just like any culture, when we feel endangered, when we feel that somehow we're compromised, that somehow we're weakened in an oppressed situation. But as you build a sense of confidence and self-esteem, slowly a sense of openness emerges. Now, it just so happens, I think that us Māori people have gone back from the times of the 1930s and the 1920s, when our elders, who were tremendously endowed with their culture, were in fact very generous with Pākehā. And my own elders were like this in bestowing tribal names upon, for example, Bledisloe, Lord Bledisloe's son, and various other things. But the key point is in the 20s and 30s, despite what had happened in the 19th century, our elders were very still very quite open and generous towards, and I should really speak about my own elders. I can't speak really for Mātātua or for any of the other elders, but certainly in my area, there was a sense of openness and confidence. But since the 1950s, with the decrease in the speaking of te reo, the decrease in knowledge of whakapapa and genealogy and stuff like that, we certainly did become inward. And it's only really been the last kind of 20 years, 10, 20 years, when things are kind of slowly opening up as particularly my generation became the benefits of the language revitalization movements of the last 20 and 30 years. And so anyway, that's a partial answer perhaps to this question of the importance of continuing the investment in Māori language, in mātauranga Māori, and repatriating it to Māori people to create a sense of confidence in New Zealand society generally.
Folks, I think we'll have just one more question because we all do want to listen to Whirimako Black later on, and we don't want to be too tight. Yes, sir.
Kia ora. I don't actually have a question. I just want to say thank you. I'm a Pākehā from Australia, and I'm working here at the museum. I'm participating in an event that is happening here that celebrates Matariki. We've been looking at Taniwha and its association with Matariki. I would like to thank everybody in this room. I'd like to thank all of New Zealand for welcoming me to participate in your celebration. And I ask you all to celebrate Matariki as loud as you possibly can so that the people in Australia hear you, so that we don't have to celebrate Australia Day. Those of us who are enlightened refer to it as Invasion Day, and I think that we in Australia need to see you guys setting the example. So thanks very much.
And with that, I'd like to thank our big thinking esteemed guests, please. Haare Williams, Whirimako Black, Charles Royal, and Pita Turei. Thank you for coming.